what is Conversations with Coryelle all about? It's a weekly series on a wide variety of topics, from the metaphysical to the philosophical, from the erotic to the exotic, from the mystical to the spiritual. It's all about showing you how to enhance your life. And I'll also be showing you ways on how you can enhance your animals' lives too. I'll be joined by host Kevin McDonald. I'm happy to have you here. Now let's have a conversation.
Well, and hello there, and welcome to a brand new gig that we're doing. What do you think?
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome, but I don't know if anybody else is going to think it's awesome. But
I think they are. And by the way, you should be able to see a screen to your right that will have the chat. If somebody would like to chat with us today, do you see it?
I see private chat and comments.
Do comments. Click on comments.
I got it.
And we should be, if anybody that's out there, if anybody would like to talk to Coryelle, because this is, of course, Conversations with Coryelle, you can call in and talk to, or not call in today. We'll be doing that in the future. We'll be calling in. But today we're just going to do some chat and talk about what we are going to talk about, which, by the way, it's so nice to see you. How are you?
I'm lovely. Thank you very much, Kevin.
How was your week?
My week's been very busy.
That's good news.
Very busy. Hi Susan, sending you love too.
See?
It works. Yay.
See?
No, it's been very, very busy. But there's been a lot of stuff going on. Good stuff, but a lot of stuff going on with the business. So excellent.
Well, I keep telling you, you're gonna. Do you have a waiting list yet?
Yes.
See, I told you by the first of the year you'd have a waiting list. So there. I think that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit before we get into what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what it is that you are actually doing and how it's affecting people and it's affecting animals and all of that. Let's talk about you a little bit.
It's affecting everybody. I love it. I love affecting people. So I have been doing a lot of work with people with their sexuality, and I've also been doing a lot of work with animals and people, bringing animal communication to another level, so to speak. So I've been doing that with what I call the animal blueprints and showing people how to interact with their animal, how to talk to their animal, how to touch their animal, play with their animal. And it's been pretty incredible. The results have been pretty amazing. And it's just blowing my mind. I thought I knew a lot about animal communication, and I do consider myself an animal communication expert, but the animal blueprints are totally and completely making the relationship with people and their animals on a totally different, deeper, more enriching level. And it's blowing my mind because I'm getting more and more and more and more information. I mean, I'm making a compendium on the different touches, on the different blueprints that I'm finding in animals, in the results that I'm having. Because I really do think that this is going to be a book. Because there's so much information. But it's just incredible. And we did that series on the animal blueprints. So if people want to know more about what that work I'm doing is with them, I strongly suggest they either go and download your podcast and listen to the episodes on the animal blueprints and the erotic blueprints for people. It'll give them a real better sense, or watching it on the YouTube videos on either your page or my page. It's really, really incredible. I didn't think I could take my metaphysical work, to an even different level, but I have, because it's just, the work was just like, it was expanding outward. It wasn't expanding upward. It's just hard to explain. There's just so much you can do as an animal communicator and as a psychic. What do you do after, you become like really, really good in the field of what you do? And my new work now with people and animals has moved my work to the next level. It's moved it up. and it's so exciting. I can't believe it. I'm so blessed. Blessed.
Well, it's fun to watch you grow, and it's been just about a year now, and you are growing exponentially. And by the way, Mark's watching, and he says hi, so thank you, Mark, and for tuning in. And but it's just amazing because we first met last January,
Hmm.
and we did a podcast together, and I was taken with you then, and then you went away for 7 months and did this big project that you had to do, and this big class you had to do, and
Yeah.
then you came back, and it's just the growth has been just absolutely phenomenal, and it's been you're making a real difference, and that's why I want to do this podcast with you, or this simulcast with you, because we're on YouTube and we're also on Facebook,
Yep.
and which is, I'm just so pleased that technology has finally caught up to what I had in mind without spending like $1 billion. And
Yeah.
I already spent $1 billion and I don't have it anymore.
Well, technology is amazing. It's definitely, it's definitely helped us, especially during this very interesting time. I don't say anything's good or bad, it's just interesting. But I just want to acknowledge Mark. So he's one of my clients, my current animal print clients. And I'm also doing work with him and helping him expand on his sexuality. And I just want to say it's lovely to see you guys, and I'm glad that you all are watching. So thank you very much.
Well, now he does reference his animal friends in his post. So talk a little bit about the work you're doing with his animal friends, and what effect that you're having. Apparently, it's a lot.
It is. And I think one of the shows that we might have is we might, when Mark and I are completed with our current session package that we're working on, I think he said he would like to be on. And I think he can explain it better than I can, because from what I'm seeing transformations in his animals, and he's playing with me. And what I mean by that is this, I'm learning brand new techniques I've never done before with people or animals. And he's willing to help me and play with me with his animals with them. So we're trying different touches that, again, should make a show on the new touches I'm doing. We're doing massive work with all of his animals, but especially with one of his dogs. And I think it's just, he just sent me a text a couple of days ago, and the change in her after I did this technique with her. I did a dyad with her, and what a dyad is basically going back and forth, asking the same question, no judgment, no expectations, just simply, a dialogue back and forth and clearing the air about a certain situation that's going on. And he sent me pictures of his dog, and she's like laying, before she was laying always in a tight ball. She came off the streets, so she had a lot of serious PTSD around that. So he sent me this video of her lying on her stomach, and she's never done this before. He says, she used to lie like a cat in a curled ball, and it looks like she's unraveling herself a little bit more. And it's so rewarding to see this work, and the work has become so incredibly powerful. And it used to be I would limit myself to one session and just really hope that what I had to say and what I had to get from that animal would help them transform in 60 minutes. And now I'm working with people and their animals and with them personally over time. And it makes such a difference. I've thrown the timer away. I don't time stuff anymore. A session lasts as long as it lasts. So it's just incredible. I wish I could really and truly say how this is transformative work and get that across. There's nobody doing this, and it's just freaking amazing. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, you get excited about it, and that's really cool, because the conversation when you were having this dyad, the conversation that you were having was between you and the animal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I wanted to make that clear.
If they, yes, and if they go to my YouTube video website on YouTube, you'll see that I posted a little video on what I did with one of my previous clients, all with her consent, which is what we're about to talk about today, all with her consent, and she gave consent on that video. But it was extremely powerful. That was the first time I had ever done a dyad between a person and their animal. I can do a dyad between me and the animal, asking them the question and getting their answers back. But what's also enriching is I'm starting to do dyads between that person and that animal so that they can clear the air, or they can express their feelings without any kind of judgment. And it's so deep and it's so beautiful. It's very emotional for me. I get very emotional. But they should go to the YouTube and they can see the conversation, the dyad I did with Nina's cat, Dee Dee.
And Nina's going to be on the podcast, or going to be on My Independence Report live on February 2nd, I believe.
No, that's Dawn.
Is that Dawn? That's somebody else.
Another client of mine. I've had
cool.
a lot of clients come in the small amount of time I've been doing this work. I've had a huge amount of people wanting to do it with me and putting their trust in me, because this is something I've never done before. I'm still learning. The training wheels are on with this, but it's so amazing how many people want to deepen their relationship with their animal, want to clear unwanted behaviors, want to clear health issues that are going on, and they're willing to work with me with my healing work, with my animal communication, with the animal blueprints. So it's pretty incredible.
You know, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we touched on is that when you talk about you're taking care of the animals and you're helping the animals in the same process, because we've done 10 episodes, 5 with the erotic blueprints and 5 with the animal blueprints. Yeah. And by the way, the podcast about BSDM is number 1 of all the ones we did. Maybe it's because it says adults only on there, but it was but more importantly, the work that you do with the animals bleeds over into their humans, and it works. So you end up working with all of it at the same time, which is just more phenomenal than well. Obviously, you're excited about it, but it's more phenomenal than a lot of people will get until they go through the process.
Yeah. It's now that I have time and I'm working with people consecutively over weeks and their animals over weeks. What I'm able to do now, what's unfolding now is that it's not just about the animal. A lot of the times there's stuff going on with the person too. And now that I have the time, I can work with everyone, because it's all about that. It's all about whatever's going on with them. And it now I'm able to heal everybody. And it's just incredible, because it is always, there's always something going on. It's not just the animal is doing it. There might be something they're feeling into you. You might be going through some transformations too with this whole interesting time we have going on. Humanity is going through a massive shift. Okay, massive shift. And the animals are being affected by that. And whether you want to do it or not, whether you intend it, you're actively intending to do it or not, and a lot of times you're not, it's affecting your animal as well. It's just incredible how when I'm able to heal the whole relationship, everyone changes, everyone heals.
Which is really cool. Okay, so now let's talk about Conversations with Coryelle. What is your stated intention for this show?
I just want to bring different subjects to the public that they may not know about, touch on different subjects for maybe around 45 minutes or so. And there's a lot of subjects that are coming out that people are asking me questions about. And I figured, well, let's just have a conversation. And on top of everything else, you and I, we Zoom a lot and we're talking a lot, and we keep saying all the time, like 3 or 4 times during a single conversation, we'll say, we should do a show on that.
We should.
Oh my God, that would be a great show. So, I decided that, you decided through your generosity that you were going to put me on every week. I still am like wondering about that, but no, I'm kidding. No, I appreciate it. I really do. But you decided that you were going to, let's make a show. Let's do a show, because it's about helping humanity through this time. And people are asking questions, and they want connection, and they want to feel not alone. And they want to have, they're going through massive emotional stuff. They're going through massive, physical stuff. So we wanted to try to help and ask the questions. And, you know me, I got a lot to say. So I got no problem.
Yes, ma'am. Well,
cool.
with everything that's going on with the unrest, and also the one thing that I promised people that I would do is I would put out there every show that 300 as of today, 375 plus thousand people have died of the COVID, and it's real. It's there. Please wear a mask. Please follow all the CDC guidelines. Make sure that you keep old folk like me safe, because I got more work to do with people like Coryelle, and I'd like to stay here. So follow all the guidelines. Take care of yourselves, because this is really real, and it's unfortunately it's going to get worse before it gets better. So okay. Having said that, that's enough of the downer part. So one of the first things that we always talked about, and we talked about this in the erotic blueprints, especially around domination and around doing certain things, that consent was a major issue that needed to be resolved. And so we're going to talk about consent today.
Yep.
Give us your definition. What do you mean by consent?
Consent to me is giving your permission to explore things, whether that's sexuality or whether that is accepting healing from somebody, or whether it's accepting, a psychic reading from somebody, or whether it's just basically bottom line, day-to-day actions of interacting with yourself and with people and even with animals. So it's a very important topic, because what it is that, it takes assuming out of it. And we all know the definition of assuming is you make it an ass out of you and me. And we all have experiences with interacting with people where, my God, if we had a consent conversation beforehand, it would have been a hell of a lot. It would have gone a hell of a lot better. Consent puts in boundaries. It puts in guidelines. It puts in safety nets so you feel comfortable. And you can also have consent with yourself. What you are going to accept from yourself and what you are not going to accept from yourself. What your yes, what your no, and what your maybe. And consent is something that makes people feel seen, heard, acknowledged, comforted, secure. And when you just assume on somebody, it usually turns out to be a hot mess. If I just assumed that you wanted to do a show with me and I didn't, I just said, Kevin, we're going to do a show. Now, you know me enough to say, okay, well, yeah, let's do it. But really and truly, you can't go up to somebody and just it just makes people close off. You can't go into a party and go up to somebody and, say, hey, hi, my name's Frank. What was your childhood like?
What's your sign?
Yeah. What's your sign? Or, you go up to somebody and you say, "Hi, may I talk to you for a moment? Is it okay if I sit and we can talk for a moment?" That gives consent. That gives somebody the ability to say yes or no at that moment. And then you can move on from there, but it opens up channels of communication in a much more healthier way.
It also eliminates misunderstanding,
Oh,
which
God.
is which is a huge component of this, because most people in a lot of their relationships, be it with them and their animals, be it with them and other people, them and their significant other, there's a level of misunderstanding because you said something and I take what you said this way, but you meant it another way, but we don't clear it up, and so we end up down the road and going, but you said, and I did not, and that's not what so it there's a lot of misunderstanding around that.
Yeah. Consent conversations. Now, if we're talking about sexuality, consent conversations are mandatory, especially if you're going to be playing with the more challenging of the sexual play. We're talking about kinky, we're talking about BDSM, we're talking about things like that. So if you're going to sadomasochism, when you're talking about that extreme, a consent conversation, if you go into that and you do not have, or that person who's supposed to be the expert you're doing it with does not do a consent conversation with you, run away quickly, because it just gives you boundaries. A consent conversation should entail a list, and the list can always change, okay? But it's boundaries. So there should be like a yes column, there should be a no column, and there should be a maybe column. And the interesting thing is, yeses can always turn into nos, especially if you're doing sex play or you're doing any kind of like sexuality thing at all. A yes can always turn into a no. Okay. A maybe, interestingly enough, can turn into a yes or no during the play, but you always have to check in and ask first, consent. Okay. A no, if you put a no on your list, a no stays a no, but can be looked at a later date to see if it can be turned into a yes or a maybe. It just makes common sense. You can add to the list, you can take away from the list, but that list is always important, and that no is always a no. It does not change, especially if you're playing sexually, because what it is that you could start off with a no, and then you start getting into it, and you start saying, I could do this, but you're in a very vulnerable place. It's not the best place to make a decision. Let's just stick with it and leave it and stop, and that's it, and we'll look at the no later on after we're done. Okay, when we're heads are clear, because right now endorphins are going crazy, and we're not thinking straight right now. So it's very, very interesting. But the conversation can go into really anything. I mean, if you have two partners, or you have a group of people who are open to it, you can have a consent conversation about the way that you deal with your business, about the way that you deal with your friendships, about the way that you deal with yourself, and this was interesting. I didn't realize that I was doing consent for years before I knew what a consent conversation was. And that I was doing with the animals. So it's very, very interesting. So what happened with that is I don't like to assume upon anybody. I don't like to assume upon a person. I'm not going to assume upon an animal. That's just me. And I realized very early on, when I first started my animal communication, I realized that if I took politeness and compassion to the animal, I had a much better conversation. They were open to me. They felt comfortable with me. They felt like they could share with me. They felt like they could trust me. And so I think every single session I ever had with an animal, I always asked, I didn't call it consent, I called it permission. I would tell the person, I'm going to ask your animal for permission. Can I talk to them? I ask for permission before I talk to them and connect with them. I introduce myself. Hi, my name is Coryelle. I'm an animal communicator. Your person has contacted me. I'm here to be your voice. I'm here to give you a voice so everybody can express themselves. I'm the bridge so everybody can express themselves. Do I have your permission to connect with you? And a lot of the times, I don't think I ever got a no. I got a maybe. And I would explain a little bit more about what I'm trying to do for them. And then I would get a yes. But the conversations would always go really, really well. And now I know that it's a consent conversation. I always ask for consent before I connect to an animal, before I send them healing, before I scan them empathically for their health, their chakras, and the shadows. Every single thing I do with a person and an animal, I always ask consent.
Interesting. That's really cool because I was just thinking to myself, it's like, okay, so you're having a conversation and you're asking consent of an animal, and do any of them ever say anything like, "Well, now how come you can talk to me and she can't?" Meaning the owner.
No, because you're hearing your animals to a certain extent. You are hearing your animals, but
we're just not paying attention.
But yeah, but it's also the fact. See, I consider like any kind of intuitive work, animal communication, psychic awareness, connecting to your guides, connecting to divine. I consider it kind of like going to the gym. And what I mean by that is you can't go to the gym and start lifting up the 100-pound weights and expecting results. And then that's it. I'm just going to the gym that one time or every month. You got to dedicate some time to it. The more you put into it, the more results you're going to have. It's like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it becomes. So for me, who's talking to the animals on a moment by moment basis, connecting to the spirits on a moment by moment basis, my intuitive muscles are stronger than somebody who is not dedicating that much time to it. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It simply means that I'm stronger in certain areas than they are because I've already moved out my logical mind, which explains a lot, I think, now that I'm saying that. So I moved out my logical mind. My logical mind is somewhere else. Okay. Yes, of course, I bring her out and stuff like that there. But basically, I can move my logical mind out and my conscious mind out and bring in my unconscious mind and bring in my intuition much quicker. It happens in milliseconds where somebody else might be fighting that logical mind. Is this really happening? Oh my God, I'm talking to my dog. This is crazy. I can't believe I'm talking to my dog. I can't believe I'm talking to my cat. Why am I talking to my bird? Is this bird really understanding what I'm saying? I don't know if my bird's really understanding what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Well, this is what happens when we have a conversation. By the way, we're having a conversation with Coryelle, and this is going to be every Tuesday at noon, unless it isn't. But mostly it's going to be. I've committed to putting this together every week, so that a Mind Appendix report will be at noon Monday through Friday. You can always tune in. There's going to be something interesting, hopefully, virtually every day, and we'll have a good time with it. But this is how it works with us. We'll start having a conversation, then we'll say, we need to talk about developing your intuition and your abilities, and we need to put that together for a show.
Yeah, let's make a show on that. Add it to the list.
So now we've got another show that we need to do about creating your intuitive self, so that you can. It's a wonderful advantage to have if you can utilize your intuitive self and talk to your guides and stuff, because it eliminates a lot of junk that you put in your head all by yourself, right?
Yeah. It I, I know that connecting to my intuition um, is something that I can't imagine my life being without. And it's enriched my life. And it's helped me a great deal to get out of my mind and just say, wait a minute, let me just connect to this. How does this feel to me? And get out of the mind, what I call the minefield of the mind, and get into a more allowing stance, and to get into a more open and just happier. Because yeah, what a lot of the stuff that's going on now is messing with your mind.
Oh
And
yeah.
your mind is freaking out. And your mind, justifiably so, is like, and if you can tune into your knowing, your inner knowing, your intuition, you're going to be able to navigate through this very interesting time. And it's going to help you, I guarantee it. So, yeah, I think we should do a show. Now, somebody's got to write that down because I don't have a pen and paper. So, somebody's going to have to write that down. But
All righty, Dale. By the way, if you'd like to talk to Coryelle, you can stream or you can chat live with her right now, and it's you can do that. In the future, we'll have the phone line set up so that you can give us a call. But today, because I'm impressed, we've got quite a few people that are listening, so that's really great fun. And
cool.
tell your friends, because this is going to be a great episode. But getting back to consent.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one thing that has happened in my life is that because I've wanted certain things to happen, be it with a relationship or a business relationship, or with even an advertiser that I wanted to bring on or whatever, I would create something in my own mind that was not real, and I wouldn't pursue it and make it clear to the other side. And so there became a natural inclination for there to be a misunderstanding from the get-go.
Yep.
And it ends up costing the relationship.
Yep.
That's how do you teach people to get away from that wishful thinking and stuff that we tend to do?
We have a consent conversation. We talk about what consent is. It's giving, it's receiving. Who's going to give, who's going to receive, who's going to accept, who's going to support, who's going to serve. All these things take the, guesswork out of it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be have some spontaneity in your life and being spontaneous. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying being spontaneous in the guidelines around your consent conversation. And I mean, think back on all the relationships you've had. I'm not just talking sexual.
No.
Although you can think about the sexual, and I don't know about you, but it's a crap fest for me. Think about all the conversations that would have benefited from everybody knowing right off the bat where you stand, where they stand. Is this going to be a pure friendship relationship, or is this going to be something maybe with a possibility of something more later on if it feels right, or if it doesn't feel right? What's acceptable, what's not acceptable? What's your insights on this? Where is your boundaries? Where are your kind of like where's the elasticity in this? Where can we play with this a little bit? And where is no? It's just so many times I have gone into a working relationship, a friendship, a relationship, and I didn't really state right off the bat what was going on, and thinking that this time it's going to be different. It's never different. Okay. It's no, you know what makes it different? Consent. That's what makes it different.
Or it'll blow it up. If you
And that's fine. If it
which is
blows
good.
it up, then
because
you're
it was
not
gonna
wasting time.
because it was gonna blow up anyway.
There you go.
Because
If
go ahead.
that person doesn't want to have consent with you, if they don't want to have that work with you on that, and then you're going to know what they're thinking. You're going to know, and if it jives with you, does this jive with me? Ooh, this feels like it's a slippery slope. Do you? And then you can ask them, can we clarify this? Do you feel like you can talk about this a little bit more? Because this feels like it doesn't feel secure for me. It's taking the baby and the baby training wheels off, and it's putting on your big person pants. It's asking the questions, not just assuming I'm going to go into this and it's going to be different and this person and I are just going to jive forever and ever and ever. It's like, no, if this doesn't work out for us, let's all just be able to say, let's part ways, no animosity, no resentments, just let's say when we've had enough. It's a breath of fresh air. And yes, I understand. I get it. Humanity is not used to talking. Now we have to talk. What COVID is doing is COVID is really making us forced to have to talk and express fully, because people are texting, people are messaging. We had a miscommunication this morning with Facebook Messenger.
Right.
And if I had just clarified what I was doing, just put in a couple of more words, there wouldn't have been a miscommunication. And I get that. That's my bad. I get it. And I own that. Okay. But it was interesting. It's like so now during this time, if you had that clarity, it's more important now than ever to make sure that you have the clarity of communication, because so much stuff can get muddled. And if you have those boundaries, you can always be able to check back on that.
I even think it's important with a contractual relationship, even like a marriage, that you sit down and you go, all right, who's going to be responsible for cleaning the kitchen? Who's going to be responsible for cooking? Who's going to take care of the laundry? All of that, and who's going to pay the bills? Or is the money going to, so that you can get rid of all the misunderstandings and all the things that drive you crazy. That it's like, my ex-wife and I never talked about who was going to clean the damn house. So you know what? Nobody did until 3 times a year when it was Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then my kids always had a joke, because the day after Christmas, the house was clean, and I'd gather everybody around, my 2 kids and my wife, and say, all right, the house is clean now. This is how it's going to stay for the entire year. That lasted a whole week, because we never made the commitment. We never made the consent to get it done, and then to commit to that consent.
Yeah. It takes the guesswork out of everything. That's why I'm saying you can use it for any relationship you have. And if you use this right, it doesn't mean that the consent conversation list doesn't change. It just means that right now everybody has clear guidelines and boundaries, and everybody understands each other. It's communication at its best, consent communication. When I used to do this, and this is a great example. So before I knew about the animal blueprints, before I came up with those, I would always treat my girl sacred, who is a sensual, by the way, sensual and energetic. I would always treat her the same way as I would treat any other animal, which is when I felt like it, even me, I would do this. When I felt like it, I would go and pick her up and just hold her. And she would cry. Like she's afraid I was going to toss her across the room. And I was like, "What? I got you. I got you. I've got you so tight and so secure. I promise I got you. I just want to hug you." And what it was that it was always a shit show. She would, excuse my French, but she would she would spring off me, which would scratch me across the chest or the arms. It would always be a show until I learned about consent. And not just about, I used to do consent about talking to her. I didn't do consent about touching her. And I would go over to her, and I go over to her and I give her my hand. I let her sniff my hand, and she'll either put her head down, which lets me know she wants to be petted on the head, and I let her know, I would like to pick you up now. Is that okay? And when I do that, she doesn't cry. Now, it doesn't mean that she's like still like, oh, I'm happy about being in your arms, but she's not crying. She's not crying. So it's the intention with the consent. Consent is also about intention. What is your intention? Whether it is verbal, whether it is physical, whether it is spiritual, whether it is emotional, what is your intention with with this interaction that's going to be happening with us? So now I just don't, again, assume and go pick her up whenever I want to, although I can do that with my orange ginger boy because he's a direct and demanding one, and he's a little kookaboo. But Sacred is very sensitive. And I used to say, and this is awful, but it's true. I used to tell her, stop being such a wussy. Just and accept this. But I was coming at her the wrong way. The blueprints really just opened my relationship up first with my animals before I took them to any of my other clients. So, but it's about intent.
Exactly. I agree with it. So let me ask you a question, because there are people that have been listening to this. And by the way, Mark says this is really important. Thank you, Mark, for chiming in. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate you for being here. You have no idea. But there are people that are going to go, that's a really fine idea, and I think I'm going to go home and I'm going to talk to my significant other about creating consent between. How do you advise people to go into that conversation with somebody who may have absolutely no idea what you're talking about?
I would suggest that they just approach it as easy breezy, lemon squeezy. Don't get too, caught up in it. Just say, I think, how would you feel if we had just a little dyad, a little conversation for the next 10 minutes, set a timer for 10 minutes. And on this, we talk about our day-to-day relationship. Okay. And about the chores. Would you feel comfortable with that? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, I think we need to make sure that everybody feels comfortable in what they're expecting of one another and what the other person is expecting of them. And I would not go straight for the jugular and go for sexuality unless you're comfortable with that, because that's a little bit of a minefield. So you want to make sure that you just, take it easy, start with the day-to-day stuff. What is your expectation of me? And this is my expectation of you. So does this feel right to you? Which one feels like a yes for you? Do I take out the garbage? Do we take out the garbage alternating the weeks? Yes. Okay. That feels good to you right now. Great. And we can always make that a no if we decide that, it's not going to work out in a little bit of time. Let's give ourselves a week. Give yourselves a time frame to play with it. Don't think that, we put this down. It's in writing. It's written in stone. Nothing's written in stone unless you're Moses. Nothing's written in stone. Okay. So, play with it and just start easy breezy. Start with the chores, or start with the garden work, or start with the who's going to drive the kids this week and that week. And again, alternate, see how that works. See, trying something for a little while. It's about the dialogue. It's about the intention and the dialogue. I mean, you're at least trying, and you say, I'm feeling like I would like to go into this conversation with you. How are you feeling on that? So, it's about the dialogue. It's about opening up a dialogue with that person. Now, I understand if you are in a relationship that's already been going on for a while, you're pretty set in your ways. So you have to, but you got to be open to playing with this a little bit. You got to be open to kind of like just giving yourself this time to play, both of you, because you're set in your ways. Let's expand a little bit. Let's try something a little different. Would you like to try something a little different with me? I would like to try something a little different with you. And what's also important is to talk about not what that other person has done before previous, like you never take out the garbage. It's no, it's your feelings, because that person can't judge that. I feel like I would like to go into this conversation with you. How do you feel about this? Okay, so maybe we could start with just like 5 things, just 5 things, 3 things, 2 things, something like that. There, it's playing with it, and then of course hiring me, and I'd help you to work it out with them.
Sometimes you need a referee in those situations, because it's so easy to make it accusatory when it's like, okay, let's talk about the housework. How come you never do the dishes?
Yeah, and that's when you go into your feelings. And again, this is strange for a lot of people, but that can't be disputed. And you keep to the feelings, meaning when I want to let you know that when this happens, I feel frustrated. And when this happens, I feel not heard and not seen. And when this happens, I feel it's your feelings can't be disputed. You're not putting that on that person, because as soon as you put something on that person shuts down. That person is just like, boop, the walls go up. I don't want to do it. It's rewiring your brain and rewiring your relationship, because what it is this. It's a play. So think about it like rewriting the play. The play is this. Your mother says this to you. You immediately say that, which causes her immediately to say this, which causes you immediately to start with the vein popping out of your head saying this. Okay.
You've been in my conversations with my mom, haven't you?
I've been in conversations with my own mother, so I know. It's about rewiring that, stopping that pattern before it even starts, and just saying, this is how I feel. And it's nothing about you. This is what's going on inside of me.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. By the way, Candy, thank you for tuning in. And I'm filming. She's asking, where are you filming? And I'm in Washington State, and Coryelle is in parts unknown, unless you'd like to reveal that.
In Mexico,
she's in
Santa Fe.
It's a lot warmer there than it is here today. We're having flood watches and stuff. So, but she makes a comment that learning about consent with our pets, why wouldn't they decide when they want to be touched? It makes perfect sense. And so thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being part of the broadcast.
I love Candy. Thank you, Candy.
She's
she's absolutely right. I mean, but a lot of people assume on animals. Animals are assumed upon every single day. You probably assumed upon your animal. If I have, you have. And that's why it's like so super important to start rewiring your brain a little bit, and starting that. It doesn't have to be a verbal conversation. Your actions are an action conversation. So, opening those things up and those dialogues up are really important. And but a lot of people are just like, well, they're an animal. I don't have to, I'm just going to pick her up. I'm going to carry her around. I'm going to lug her around. I'm going to swing her around. And it's like, no, it's like, it's going to be so much better if you ask and you let them show you the signs of when they're receptive to your touch, to your company. It's going to be just so much better and so much easier for everyone.
I'd like to thank you very much for volunteering to do this little deal going forward, because it really is. I learn so much every time we get together, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope others enjoy it. Make sure that you drop Coryelle a line to let her know that you were watching and what do you think and all of that. And if somebody wants to talk to you directly, my dear, how do they get that done?
If somebody wants to talk talk to me directly, they can find me on Facebook, Coryelle Kramer. And if somebody wants to look into session packages with me, with either themselves or their animals, they go to my website, which is CoryelleKramer.com.
You make stuff so tough.
I know. I know.
And also go to my independent report. There are 10 episodes actually more than that Coryelle is part of. And I do have to say that in the ranking of all of the podcasts, she's in the top 10 several times. And I just appreciate her to death, and it's great fun. So now we promised that we were going to keep this under an hour, so like between 45 and 50 minutes or so. So we are there. So I wish everybody have a good day. Any last thoughts before we go?
No, I just start thinking about consent. Start thinking about consent. Start thinking about the importance of it. Start thinking where you can work it into your relationships, not just the sexual ones, but all your relationships and all your interactions. Think about how it could better your business. Consent, consent, consent.
I can tell you it can help your business because if everything's clear and everybody comes to a clear understanding and an agreement, then that works. If you're unclear, then there's misunderstanding, and then that's where you lose customers, you lose partners, and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want to do that. You'd rather not have the relationship to begin with, rather than to think you're doing one thing and they think you're doing another thing, and then you're not doing anything.
It's a shit show.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that words of wisdom, we're going to go ahead and leave you alone for the rest of the day. I'll be back tomorrow at noon. I hope you'll join me. And thank you, Coryelle.
Thank you, Kevin.